Welcome to all my travelers out there. I am your host, Darren Beckett, and this is the Global Travel Podcast. For those who do not know my travel resume, I've been to 13 states, 15 countries on 5 different continents, but it is not about me. Here, we are giving you quality travel tips, insights, and recommendations on all the best destinations for ideas to enjoy your vacations. With that being said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. We are all clear for takeoff. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we reach our destination, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button, click the bell, and if you can do me a huge favor, if you can go in the comment section below, type in the words, "I got my ticket," and at the end of the show, I'm going to come back, I'm going to respond to see how your experience went with us, all right? So with that being said, on today's episode, we are taking a trip to Austria. So make sure you got your passports, your earphones, and something to snack on. We have a very special guest here with us today. But before I introduce her, let me just say this. Now, this young lady right here is well-traveled. She's been to 17 different states, road tripping, also 20 different countries. So if Austria is on your list of places to go, you definitely want to pay attention and take some notes. Without further ado, let me introduce you to Mrs. Jade Field. How you doing, Jade?
Hi, I'm doing good.
Good. Glad to have you. Thank you so much for stopping by. Much appreciated for showing us, some love with the travel knowledge and all that good stuff. You've been in a lot of places actually, so that's gonna be
Yeah,
fun.
and I love talking travel, so I'm so happy to be here.
This is a great place for you to be then. So with that, you know what, let's go ahead and just jump into it.
Yeah,
If you can just tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, where you live, hobbies, X, Y,
yeah,
and
yeah,
Z.
yeah. So my name's Jade. I'm 25. I live in LA. I've lived in LA most of my life. A few years when I was like a toddler outside of New Orleans. But LA basically my whole life.
Mhm.
I'm an actress. You might know me from a YouTube series, the React shows, like Teens React and Adults React,
Nice.
on those. I was a tour guide at Warner Brothers. Unfortunately, I got laid off because of COVID because they're closed. Tourism
Mhm.
is not happening right now.
Right.
I also worked at Universal as a tour guide, so I've like worked some cool places. And yeah, I love to travel. It's my biggest passion. Can't wait till COVID's over and can resume traveling again.
Yeah, that part, we're all in that same boat. So
Yeah.
now you mentioned Louisiana. Let's go ahead and take a trip to Louisiana.
Okay.
What part of Louisiana are you from? What can you expand on
Yeah.
and talk about?
So, while I was born in California, a month after I
Mhm.
was born, my mom moved us back to live with her parents in a city called Thibodeau, which is
Mhm.
about an hour outside of New Orleans. And I lived there from a year old to 4.5. So I consider my hometown because I learned to like walk and talk and all that stuff there. And then we moved
Mhm.
back to California. And then we go visit usually about once a year, once every 2 years, but usually like once a year to see my grandpa. So my mom was raised there. Her mother is from New Orleans. So her family has lived there for a while. They used to have this big, beautiful house in New Orleans. I wish I could have seen, but it got like torn down before I was
Ah,
born. But I
wow.
love New Orleans. It's my favorite city in the United States that I have been to so far.
Mhm.
I wouldn't want to live there though, just because I can't do humidity. I can't do it. The last time I went to New Orleans in the summer was in 2010, and I remember like me and my grandpa just one day decided to go to the zoo in August, and it happened to be like the hottest day of the year, and it was
Whew.
so humid. It felt like you were like swimming, and like my
Right.
makeup was melting off my face. It was terrible, and I vowed to never go back again in the summer after that.
Right.
I
Right.
went in June earlier this year, but that was like for a specific reason, and it honestly wasn't too bad in June. But so now the past years we usually go like Christmas, Thanksgiving, or in like January and February when the weather is much nicer. So
Mhm.
that's my tip for New Orleans. Absolutely do not go during the summer. June
Ah.
isn't bad. Like beginning of June is not bad, but August, July, September, no,
Right.
no, 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 no. You'll be miserable. It sucks during the summer, but outside of the summer,
Uh-huh,
it's
uh-huh.
great and I love it.
Right. So okay. So I know you mentioned the zoo. What's the name of the zoo before you get to some other place?
It's oh yeah, it's the Audubon Zoo there. So what is cool? I we used to go to the zoo and aquarium a lot there. So you can get like a ticket for the zoo and the aquarium on the same day, and you can actually take the river boat on the Mississippi River from the zoo to the aquarium on the same day. So you see that, and that's like a little fun thing, something
Nice,
different.
nice. Yeah. Definitely different. Okay. So definitely folks can go to the zoo. Take a little
Yeah,
river, a little boat across
little
the
river boat.
Mississippi. Yeah, a little
My
river boat across
favorite place
Mississippi.
though to go when I'm in New Orleans, I go there literally every time I go. But I'm also a big history fan. So if you're not a history person, it might not be for you. But the World War
Mhm.
II Museum there is the best museum
Oh.
I've ever been to. I literally go there every
Mhm.
trip because they keep expanding. It is an
Mhm.
amazing museum. So if you were at
Mhm.
all interested in history, especially like World War II, that is a must on your trip.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool. So you
that's
got is that you said that New Orleans is where we can get
yeah,
into the World War
World War
II?
II
Okay.
museum. Yeah.
Cool. So if you guys are interested in history, World War II Museum in New Orleans, Louisiana, definitely take a look. It sounds like it's pretty awesome. And what else do you recommend folks to do while they're in New Orleans?
So
New
I also
Orleans.
recommend doing a ghost tour of the French Quarter.
Mm.
That's really fun. There's a bunch of different companies that do it. There are ones that focus on ghosts, there are ones that focus on vampires and everything. So I've done a few different ones and it's always a lot of fun. So I definitely recommend
Mhm.
doing a ghost tour. Also checking
Mhm.
out one of the cemeteries while you're there because New Orleans is one of the only places that has above ground cemeteries because the city's
Mhm.
below seawater. So it
Mhm.
looks very different than cemeteries in the rest of the United States. I don't know what really cemeteries look like in the rest of the world, but it's really unique. And so the cemeteries are beautiful there. I also, food. The best part about New Orleans is the food. Oh my God.
Mhm.
You gotta have a
Mhm.
shrimp po' boy while you're there. Shrimp po' boy is a
Yep.
must.
Yep.
Jambalaya, um,
Mhm.
gumbo, crawfish
Mhm.
etouffee, or just something crawfish. Crawfish you don't really get much outside of like the South Gulf area, and I love crawfish. It's kind of
Mhm.
similar to shrimp. Though I
Mhm.
would recommend not if you're gonna do crawfish like outside of a dish, doing it where the head and body is already removed because they are a pain in the butt to peel. Like way more difficult than shrimp. So like paying the extra money to have it like peeled for you, definitely big help.
Yeah.
And then let's see, yeah. So that's some of the really good food. Oh, have to go to Cafe Du Mont for beignets. That is like a must.
Ooh.
100%. If you go to
Okay.
New Orleans and you do not go to Cafe Du Mont and get beignets, you haven't done New Orleans right. So you have to go to Cafe Du Monde and get beignets. Now here is a
Yeah.
tip. Now here is a good tip that not many people know about. So there's
Okay.
a bunch of locations of Cafe Du Monde now, but the original one is over in the French Quarter in Jackson Square. Now
Mhm.
this is normal. I'm not talking about how COVID works, but
Right.
normally,
Pre-COVID.
but
Uh-huh.
normally it's open 24 hours, and people will stand in this really long line waiting for
Mhm.
beignets. That is the line if you want beignets to go. Just go sit at a table and a waiter will come to you and you will not have to wait in the big old line. So just look for an empty
Wow.
table, take a seat, and you're passing up all those schmucks who think that's how you get beignets. That's only if you want beignets to go and you don't want them at the table.
Right.
So just take a seat.
So for those folks who do not know what a beignet is, may you describe
Mhm.
what exactly is it? Is it a pastry? What do you
So
eat it
it's
with, or what's
basically
that?
like a fried donut. It's like
Mhm.
it's a little square. It's fried dough and it's hollow on the inside, and then they drench it in powdered sugar. And so
Mm.
it's really delicious. They're hot and fresh. It's so
Mhm.
good. And then
Mm.
usually people drink it with coffee. I'm honestly not a big coffee drinker, but they have a special cafe au lait, which is like their signature drink there. So if you like
Mhm.
coffee, I'd recommend doing the beignets and the cafe au lait.
Cool, cool. So before we head to another state, anything else
Yeah. Yeah.
Louisiana you
Like,
want to talk about?
yeah, just touch on a few more things. One of the
Go
other
ahead.
unique things I love is and again, at least as far as I know, this is nowhere else in the United States. They have drive-through daiquiri huts there.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So you pull up. It's like I'm going to McDonald's. You look on the menu, you say what you want, and they hand you your daiquiri through the window, and you take your drink. Now, when my mom was growing up, the drinking age there was 18, and I didn't really care. But after all the drunk driving accidents, they tried to get rid of the drive-through daiquiri huts, because they were like, oh, that promotes drinking and driving. But so the way they got around that little rule is now what they do is they tape over the little place where you put the straw and tape the straw on the side, so then they can say, well, we didn't give it to them with like the straw in it. They could be taking it home. We don't know.
That's a good one. That you got a CYA, cover your ass. So that's a good one.
Yeah, so you definitely got to do a drive-through daiquiri, even if you don't have a car. Take an Uber over to them. Like, how often you're gonna be able to go through it? Like, say you pulled up in a car and got a daiquiri to go.
Yeah,
Best
yeah. I
thing.
like that. I
And
like
then they
that.
have
That's
tons of like
good.
daiquiri shops around New Orleans that you can just walk in and get one. But I like the daiquiri huts are better. And that's another great thing about New Orleans is one of the only cities in the United States you can walk around and drink as you're going about. You don't have to,
Mm.
you know, be in a place and drink. You grab a drink and you walk around. So the drinks I recommend while you're there to get is a strawberry daiquiri. It's my favorite thing, or just one of the daiquiris, but strawberry is my favorite. A hurricane.
Right. A
Um,
hurricane. I had one of
At
those.
Pat O'Brien. Pat O'Brien's is
Oh.
another place I really recommend. So that is a
Okay.
piano bar. It's so much fun. It's a dueling piano bar, and so they take
Mhm.
requests and do songs. It's a really fun atmosphere, and the hurricanes are really strong and really good. So Hurricane is a drink that was made in New Orleans. So you got to get a Hurricane in New Orleans.
Mm,
I recommend the mixed drink over the frozen ones. They taste a little
mhm,
bit better to me. And then the other
mhm.
drink you have to get while you're there, well, you don't have to get, but if you're wanting to get, lit, a a hand grenade there.
Ooh.
It's like a secret recipe. You don't really know what's in it. To me, it tastes like there's like Midori and it tastes like kind of melony, but that
Mhm.
drink will get you drunk fast. You have like
Ooh.
one of those and you're good. You have like two of those and you're really good.
What is it
That's
called? You
good
said
thing
hand
about
grenade?
a
Hand
hand
grenade?
grenade. Yeah, and it's at they have a few different
Ooh.
locations around the quarter. It's called, I think, Tropical Isle is where you get it.
Mm.
But if you like ask someone on the street who's around there, where can I get a hand grenade? Like people know. You'll see these like little green, lime green cups with like a kind of looks like
Mm.
a grenade on the bottom. Everyone's walking around with them in the quarters,
Uh-huh.
so you'll notice.
I like that. I like that. So if y'all in Louisiana, New Orleans, be specific, get some good food, etouffee, gumbo, jambalaya, shrimp po' boy, get you a beignet, get you some
Beignet.
daiquiris too, and a hand grenade. Anything else?
I think that about covers it for New Orleans. Just yeah, make sure you drink lots of stuff, eat lots of good food. Oh, and take a ride on the streetcar trolley down St. Charles Avenue through the
Mm-hmm.
Garden District. Some of the most
Mm-hmm.
beautiful houses and beautiful street, and that's the main route for the Mardi Gras parades, like when they happen. So you'll still some any
Beautiful.
time of year you see beads still stuck up in the trees on that route.
Nice. And of
Yeah,
course, I'm sure you guys know about Bourbon Street and all that good stuff and Mardi Gras and all that. So if you're interested in going to Louisiana, New Orleans, or what have you, they got good food, a lot of stuff to do, history, good culture and whatnot. So definitely put that on your list if it's not already. All right,
yeah.
Jay, where else you taking us? What other state we going?
All right. Well, let's do Arkansas, which is directly above Louisiana. So,
Mhm.
on my way back from Louisiana this past summer, I did a 2 week road trip. And so I went to Arkansas. Honest to God, I had never really cared about going to Arkansas before. I was like, "Mm."
Right,
But
right.
I knew I wanted to go to Colorado on my road trip, so I was looking up ways to get there, and I could have either gone through like Texas and New Mexico and then up into Colorado. And I passed through Texas before, and New Mexico a little bit, or I could have gone up through Arkansas to Missouri and then across Kansas into Colorado. So I kind
Mhm.
of started looking up, and honestly, Arkansas is a hidden gem if you like hiking, which I love hiking.
Right,
So
right.
I didn't think there'd be really much for me to want to do in Arkansas, but there ended up being a lot I wanted to do. So this summer, while I've done 2 other road trips, this was my
Mm-hmm.
first road trip with my dog. So that meant everything I was doing, I had to do outside and I had to
Mm-hmm.
do with her. Luckily, though, I love hiking and outdoor stuff, so it worked out pretty well. But
Nice.
Arkansas is known as the natural state,
Mm,
and it has tons and tons of beautiful hikes there. So my first stop was Hot Springs National Park.
nice.
It is the only national park in the United States that has a city inside of the national park. Like, in most national parks, you drive up to the ranger station and it's just like
Mm-hmm.
trees or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
No, when you drive into this national park, it feels like you're just in a small town. Like you're like,
Oh.
oh, this is the national park. So they're known for their hot springs, obviously, and they have what they call bathhouse row, where they have a bunch of those hot spring bathhouses. Because of COVID, only a few were open. Wasn't able to do it anyways because I was with my dog.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
they have like part of the hot springs on like the back of that. You can like feel the water, how hot it is, and whoo, it's nice and toasty
Ye-
feeling that water.
Yeah, yeah.
And so did some hikes around there. I camped on a lake about like an hour, 45 minutes from
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
And did some hikes, did a waterfall hike there. There's tons and tons of lakes and rivers and waterfalls in Arkansas, which if you're gonna hike in the summer, should be hiking with some water around, or
Right.
else it's not as nice. Um, One of the cool places I went to in Arkansas was, I think it was about maybe 45 minutes to an hour south of Hot Springs. I think it was called in Garland, Arkansas. There is this beautiful chapel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's called, oh, let me look it up real quick. You can edit this out while I
Yeah, yeah,
do
no, no, that's
this.
fine. Yeah, 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 yeah. That the beauty of recording, right?
Okay. So I went to this beautiful chapel. It was called Anthony Chapel at Garvin Woodland Gardens.
Mm-hmm.
It's free to check out the chapel. It's like, for me, I love like architecture stuff, so that was a place that I like saw pictures of, and I was like, oh, I want to go there because it's basically a chapel that's all made of just glass and and wooden beams. So when you're
Wow.
inside the chapel, you're just surrounded by forest because it's just
Right.
all
Wow.
glass, and it's really pretty. Now, if you don't care, like that, I just went there for like, half an hour and took some photos.
Right.
But it was something cool for me to check out. I also like love wedding stuff, so that's like
Right.
one of the top wedding venues in the United States that people get married in.
See, you learn something new every day. So, all my
Yeah,
travelers out there, if you are planning to get married and you want to do something special or a little different, you may want to hit Arkansas and go to that Glass Chapel. That sounds pretty cool. If you like the
yeah,
outdoors and camping and lakes and hiking and all that, Arkansas, it sounds like that's your state to be in.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And then I went up to it's, I think, called like Uwachaw National Forest. The National Forest in Arkansas, it's gigantic. Oh,
mhm.
Ozark. No, it's called Ozark National Forest.
And y'all
I think Uwachaw.
definitely
I
want to
think
hit the hot
Uwachaw is the
spring.
lake. Yeah, I think Uwachaw is the lake. Yeah, Lake Uwachaw. But so Ozark National Forest has a ton of hikes, tons of waterfalls. Oh my God, I had so many waterfalls on my list. I had to like cut them down. Um, but yeah, some really good hikes, and some hikes that are like, I'm not someone who does like 10-mile hikes. No, no, no. For me,
Ooh.
it's like less than 6 miles is what I want to do, and most of the hikes I was doing
Uh-huh.
were under 3 miles round trip, so they're pretty easy. One of the
Mhm.
waterfalls that's really cool there is called, I think it's either Glory Hole or Glory Falls.
Mhm.
And that is a waterfall that goes through rocks, so that's like a
Mm.
unique little
Oh,
waterfall
cool.
there. And then the like big hiking trail to do there is Hawksbill.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it has this little rock that like juts out into the forest
Mhm.
and looks like a hawksbill. And it's the most photographed, according to Google, it's the most photographed spot in Arkansas.
Wow.
So
See, you
had
know
to
what?
had to
Yeah,
hike out to that.
yeah, I like that. I like that. See, we learn it. I'm sure a lot of our listeners don't know too much about Arkansas, so you are
I
dropping a
didn't.
lot of, yeah,
I
yeah.
honestly didn't before I started researching going there.
Yeah, so Arkansas, great place to go. If you guys haven't been, put it on your bucket list, especially during these times. If you don't want to travel outside the United States, go to Arkansas. It sounds like it's a cool place. And then you know what? Speaking of out of the United States, let's go ahead and go international. So
Okay.
before we hit Austria, we got a little ways till we hit Austria. What country do you want to stop in first?
Well, how about we stop in the first country that I did on my backpacking trip?
Let's do it. What country is that?
That was Denmark. So,
Oh.
about 3.5 years ago, I did a 2 month backpacking trip solo through Europe.
Mm,
And
mm.
it was also, other than it being my first time backpacking, not my first time in Europe. I had been to Europe before with my grandpa. It was my first time ever traveling solo. So I did it big. I did 2 months in Europe backpacking solo by myself.
That is big, yeah.
So I flew from LAX to Copenhagen.
Mhm,
Copenhagen was honestly not somewhere super high on my list. It was on my list, but when I was having to cut cities out because my
mhm.
list was just too big, um, Copenhagen was one that got cut until I saw I could get a direct flight there and it was cheap to fly there. I was like,
Mhm,
okay, I'll add Copenhagen.
mhm.
And Copenhagen was beautiful. To be honest, I actually like Copenhagen more than I liked Amsterdam.
Oh, and why is that?
Amsterdam gets all the hype, and
Yeah.
Copenhagen had a very similar like feel to the city, because it's like built on canals. It has very similar
Mhm.
architecture, so it looked very similar to Amsterdam. But I actually thought like Copenhagen was prettier.
What is it? What are they known for, far as food? Do they eat? Do they have like good food there? Or what did you eat?
Food, no, they're honestly not really known for their food too much. I know they're known for like herring, which is like that fish. I'm gonna try that though. But they are known for their beer. Carlsberg beer, which is a pretty famous beer, was started
Mhm,
there.
mhm,
And so they do have some good beer. I will say though, Denmark, just as long as with all the other Scandinavian countries, is a very expensive country to go to.
mhm,
For everything, for lodging, for traveling, for food.
mhm,
But it's a really cool place. I really did enjoy it. I wasn't there for very long though. I was only there for like 3 days. One of the things I did there was Tivoli Gardens, which is like the first official amusement park, I think, and it's actually what Walt Disney based Disneyland off of. And Disneyland's like one of my favorite
mm.
places. So I was like, well, I have to go see like what Walt based Disneyland off of. So and that's like right in the center of the city too. Like I could walk to it from my
Right.
my hostel. Then I went to
Okay.
Berlin. Berlin was
Mm,
cool, but I will say it wasn't one of my favorite places I went to. As I said, I
mhm,
love architecture and stuff, and
mhm.
Berlin felt like walking in downtown Los Angeles. Like it wasn't that like old European feel with like the cobblestone streets and the beautiful little like houses that have been there for centuries, because most of it was bombed out during the war. So it's
Mhm,
basically
mhm.
all new. Great. They do have great museums there. For me, as I said, I love World War II history. So I did go to some really good museums there. It's a great place though if you love like partying and dancing. Like the clubbing scene there is a very, very big thing. I
Yeah.
had a friend who offered to show me around there. And I went out with him on May Day, which is like a famous celebration in Europe. We don't celebrate it here though. Um, and like the clubs in LA close at 2 a.m., you know?
Mhm,
Clubs there do
mhm.
not close. Like I was out till like 6 a.m. dancing. I was like falling asleep and I was like, okay, I gotta go back. I can't do this. They said they would routinely be out till 10 a.m. 10 a.m. dancing and
Ooh,
partying. I was like, I don't know how you do that. And they're like, yeah, and
yeah.
then we go sleep for like 3 hours and then go to work. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how you guys do.
Wow, they start work late, that's for sure. If they they start work late.
I mean, it
Okay.
just depends.
Yeah, you're right, right, right. Yeah, yeah, you're right about that. We can start late as well here in the United States.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Denmark, we hit Denmark, we hit Berlin. Any other places during your backpack trip that you would like to cover?
Yeah, I did a lot. I'll kind of like make my way to Austria, kind
Do
of
you Let's do
briefly
it. Yep.
briefly touch. So then next I went to Prague, which Prague is big on people's places. little overhyped for me though, I'll be honest. I think because I just heard so many amazing things about, oh my God, Prague, oh my God, Prague, oh my God, Prague. And so to me, when I got there, I was expecting so much, and I was a little let down. It was still a cool
Mm-hmm.
place, but I wish my expectations hadn't been set so high from so many people hyping it up. It
Mm-hmm.
was a cool place, but I would say all the stuff you've heard about Prague, lower your expectations, then when you go, you're not like a little
Uh,
disappointed.
well,
It's a beautiful place. Really, really
what
old city.
what are some what are I don't mean to cut you off, but what are
Yeah,
some of the hype things that folks was hyping? What did they say about it that made it seem so like appealing to
they
go to?
just said they loved it so much. Like I just kept hearing from people that, oh, it was my favorite place I went to in Europe. Like that was mainly the thing I was hearing. Oh, it was like one of my favorite places I went to. Oh, I loved it. It's so great. It was my favorite place I went to in
Uh,
Europe. That was the main thing. I don't think people were really saying like specifics about it. They were just
okay.
saying it was my top place I went to in my trip. And I went to a bunch of different countries. And Prague was
Wow.
my favorite. So like hearing from
Uh,
everyone, Prague was my favorite. Prague was my favorite. I was like,
mhm.
okay, okay. I will say Prague does get lots of points though for being incredibly cheap. So if you are backpacking on a budget or just
Mhm.
traveling on a budget,
Mhm.
and I thought I was traveling on a budget, but talking to other people, I wasn't really. I budgeted about $100 a day. So that was comfortable for me. I like to eat. I like to eat food. So I didn't want to have to be like cooking in a hostel and
Mhm.
stuff. I think a big part of exploring countries is through the food. So I went
Yes.
to make sure I was able to eat and do attractions and stuff. So I will say there were some days that I did go over my $100 budget, and some days, I was under. Um, but Eastern Europe, I was all under my budget because it's really, really cheap. I stayed in a hostel that was $7 a night. Yeah.
Wow. That's good savings
So
right there.
beer is like $1 for a nice
Ooh.
thing of beer. Yeah.
Is
Food
there
is
any
really cheap.
specific beers or national beers because or that you
Yeah,
can
Pilsner.
mm,
Pilsner is the big beer. I actually took a train about an hour and a half away and toured the Pilsner um, brewery, which was really, really cool. If you are interested in beer and you really like beer, I would definitely recommend doing the Pilsner brewery tour. I did two brewery tours when I was in Europe there, and the Heineken one in Amsterdam.
mhm,
The Heineken
mhm.
one is very much like a tourist attraction. It's not really
Okay.
like a brewery tour. They made it very touristy. Or Pilsner
Tourist
is
trap.
actually I mean, it was still cool, but yeah, it wasn't
Mhm.
really a brewery tour. It was more kind of about like experiences that they like made for it. But Pilsner
Okay.
was a brewery tour. It was really cool. You go down into the caves where they still have some of the giant barrels that they keep the
Mm.
beer in, and you just like see the whole process. So that was really cool, and that beer is really great. And then food
Yeah.
wise, a lot of Eastern Europe kind of has similar food. So Eastern Europe is very hearty food, I think because it's like very cold there. So they
Mhm, mhm.
eat, why am I blanking on the name for this?
Yeah, so
Um,
if you guys are in the eastern, part of Europe, you definitely want if you're on a budget, you can definitely get around fairly cheap, fairly affordable. If you're a hostel type of individual, you can find hostels for as low as $7 a night, which is crazy. And then, you can just backpack, go to different places. When it comes to food, it sounds like hearty meals because of the region that they're in, the climate and the weather is pretty chilly. So definitely check out Eastern Europe if you want to backpack and you're doing on traveling on a budget. That's a good place to start off.
okay,
Okay. And
so
did you
it's
find yep.
yeah, so it's goulash, which are
Goulash?
yeah. And so it's like a stew, and then it usually comes with like these like kind of like bread pastries. So I had a few of those in a few different Eastern European countries that were kind of similar.
Mhm,
Also pork is very, very big in Eastern Europe. I personally don't really eat pork, so that was something like different to me,
mhm,
and it was honestly a little hard finding food that was didn't have pork in it.
mhm.
That was like their national dishes that like I wanted to try. So if you don't
Right.
eat pork, I will say Eastern Europe might be a little tricky for you, or at least like your food options might be a little bit more limited. So then
Hmm.
from Prague, I went on to Krakow, Poland, which is a place I don't think many people have heard of or know about. I think if people have heard of Poland, they've only heard of Warsaw, the capital.
Yep.
But I had heard not great things about Warsaw. It's kind of similar to Berlin, like a business city,
Okay.
where Krakow is known as the cultural center of
Hmm.
Poland.
Okay.
Now, I love Krakow. It was in my top three places I went to on my trip. I liked it
Ooh.
more than Prague. I felt like Krakow was a less busy, Prague, like very similar style of architecture and how the city looked and everything. And I thought the food there was really good. They have all the little pierogies, they have a big Jewish population, or they used to population there. So they have a lot of like Jewish food. They have this pizza thing called, I think it's like zappolini, something like that.
Hmm.
They put ketchup on their pizza though. A little weird. I
A
gave
little
it a shot.
different. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
gave it a shot. I wasn't
At
crazy.
least you tried it. At least you
I
tried
wasn't
it. There
crazy
you
about
go.
the ketchup
Yeah.
on pizza, but like
Yeah.
that's how they do it there. So
When
I
in
gave
Rome.
it a shot. And Krakow, again, like I've mentioned a few times, I love history. So one of the reasons I wanted to go to Krakow is because of the deep history there. So have you seen the movie Schindler's List? Just curious.
I have not, to be quite honest. Nope.
Okay,
Can't say
so
I have.
Schindler's List is won an Academy Award for Best Oscar, directed by Steven Spielberg. So Krakow, unfortunately, was one of the hardest hit places by the Holocaust. They had a very, very
Mm,
big, they had a very big Jewish community. Um, all of Poland did before the war,
mhm,
and so
mhm.
Krakow is only an hour and a half from Auschwitz.
Okay.
So I
Wow.
did go to Auschwitz while I was there, which was an experience. I was, it's kind of hard to describe a concentration camp. You're not
Hmm.
happy you're
Hmm.
there. Obviously, you're not.
Right.
It's a
Right.
terrible place,
Right.
but it's very
Right.
informative, I guess is the right word. And you feel a
Hmm.
lot of like gravity there. And I think it is somewhere important to go to though, to learn and make sure we don't repeat those mistakes. But it was like staggering because Auschwitz had two different camps. They had the original one that was a concentration camp. Originally, it was a concentration
Hmm.
camp, and they weren't really doing like the sorry to get like kind of a little somber and bringing the mood down. Uh,
Go ahead.
but so it's started as a concentration camp where people, Jewish people and unwanted like disabled people and gay people were
Hmm.
sent there to work. Yes, some
Hmm.
were killed.
Hmm.
Yes, some died working, but it was a concentration camp to start with. But then when they started the extermination plan, that's when they built Auschwitz Birkenau, which is a few miles away from the original Auschwitz. And
Hmm.
like I was blown away by how huge that place was. Over a
Wow.
million people were killed there.
Oh, snaps. Goodness gracious. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's but it's history though, like you said,
Yeah,
it's something to learn from so we don't repeat it. Even though history repeat itself, it's kind of funny. Like, aren't we
yeah,
supposed to learn at least sooner or later? But
yeah,
yeah, that's one of the, it's history. Like I said, it happened here, happened. And like I said, if we can learn
yeah,
from it, do better, and we could be better. So yeah, I hear you
yeah.
loud and clear.
But hitting back to Schindler's List real quick.
Hmm.
So a little bright spot to
Yeah.
Krakow
Yep.
was so Oscar. So I would definitely recommend if you're going to go to Krakow, watching Schindler's List before you go.
Hmm.
So Oscar Schindler was a German businessman who worked in Krakow, and he had like Jewish workers there. And when Jewish people were starting to get sent to the camps, he started having more Jewish people come and work for him, so that they could, because Jewish people are all sent to a ghetto before they were sent
Hmm.
to the concentration camps, so that they could, have food and be working. He had a lot of Jewish people coming and working for him who would be able to leave the ghetto to come to work and then have to go back. So then when he found out that they were going to be exterminating all these Jewish people, um, he wrote a list of as many people as he could to save them. So I'm trying to remember the amount of people, so don't quote me if I'm
Mm.
wrong. But I think he saved about 1,000 Jewish people with his.
Nice.
That's why the movie is called Schindler's List. But yeah, it's really sad. I remember reading that there were like 65,000 Jewish people who lived in Krakow before the war.
Mhm.
After the war, 3,000, and a
Ooh.
thousand of those were saved by
Wow.
Oscar Schindler.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm also half Jewish, so it was like a place that I, always wanted to like go to.
Mm-hmm.
So if you like history, there's a lot to do there. Oh, there's also the salt mines, something nice to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Super, super cool. If you're gonna go to Krakow, you have to go to the salt mines. It's amazing. It's like nowhere else I've ever been. It's so you go like you walk down all this long, long, long stairs. Don't worry, you take an elevator back up, so you don't have to walk back up.
Cool.
So you go all the way underground into the salt mine, and there are all these salt carvings. And there is salt carvings when you get to this one room. There's 3 chapels that they
Mm-hmm.
like carved in there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a recreation that they carved out of salt into the wall of the Last Supper.
Oh, snaps. Wow.
Yeah.
That would be nice. That would be, do you
And
have
it's
any
like
pictures on
lit.
that?
I do. Do you want me to
Yeah.
send them, or I
Yeah,
can?
yeah, you
Yeah.
know what? Yeah. I'm gonna definitely grab that from you. So we can put that in here. That'd be real nice to
Yeah,
check
and
out.
they have all these beautiful chandeliers that are made of like it looks like crystals, but they're salt crystals, and
Yeah.
so that was super cool. It's super unique. So all these different kinds of carvings they have made out of like salt down there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really cool. So definitely check that out if you go to Krakow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I went to Budapest,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which big place on people's list. I think
Yeah.
rightly so. I loved Budapest. I ended
Right.
up actually extending a day there. I was only supposed to be there 4 days, but I loved it so much. I wanted to spend another day there. I hadn't seen everything. Now, if you want to go party, Budapest is the place to do it. Berlin's
I've
great too,
heard.
but
I've heard.
Budapest is amazing. So Budapest is known for their party hostels where
Mm-hmm.
people go ape shit. Now, at least for me, while I did want to do some partying, I didn't want my whole time there to be about partying.
Right.
And I love my sleep. I cherish my sleep. So I'm like, I want to be somewhere that I can sleep well after I'm done partying. Because some of those hostels are like just balls to the walls party all
Right.
the
I've heard.
time.
Have you heard of
Um,
a hostel called Retalk?
yes, it's
Is that
very famous. That's one of
uh,
those hostels famous for like having orgies at it. And yeah.
oh,
Oh, yeah.
whoa. See, there we hey, party, turn up. Hey, if that's what you're looking
Yeah.
to go, hey, go into Budapest and turn up.
So I ended up staying in a hostel recommended by a friend that I was perfect. Now I this one might have closed down because of COVID. I don't know. But if you're wanting something like me, where you want to be able to party, but you also want to be able to sleep and not have like music blasting till 7 a.m. or whatever,
Mhm.
the hostel I stayed at was great. It was called Carpe Vita Noctem.
Mhm.
Kind of a mouthful.
It is.
Carpe Vita Noctem. There's like a Carpe Vita, and then there's like Carpe Vita Noctem, and so there's like 2 of them. And so the great thing about this hostel is it's in an apartment building, so there's like a noise curfew of like 9 p.m.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
what they do is, you because hostels are great for if you're solo traveling. I highly recommend staying in hostels if you're solo traveling. I did a
Mhm.
few Airbnbs here and there because I wanted a break from hostels, and sometimes it was just made a little bit more sense to stay in an Airbnb. But for
Right.
the most part, I stayed in hostels because I wanted to meet people and experience things. So hostels are what you want to do if you're traveling solo. It's also much cheaper
Right,
because you're not paying for
right.
a full room. Though you can get private rooms at hostels, but cheaper is to do
Yep.
dorms. And depending on how many beds are in each dorm, it gets more expensive. So, if you don't mind having 12 people in dorm, it'll be cheaper than if you have only 4 people in a dorm. But so this
Right,
hostel
right.
um, it's part of the party hostel like network. So what you would do, so every night was a different theme. You would go meet up with the other
Uh-huh.
hostels and go out. So you be with all the party hostels, but then you can go back
Uh-huh.
to the quiet
Yeah.
hostel.
It's like a
So
hybrid. I like that.
yeah. And so like a few nights we did go to like the party hostels
Right,
and then
right.
came back.
Yeah, yeah.
You
It was an
sleep
off
to
button. You're
sleep
like, push
well.
that off button.
Yeah,
Off
exactly.
party.
So it's still like you still got to go out and party. My favorite night there was actually my first night I got there. It happened to be the night that they were doing a boat party.
Hmm.
And so it was on the Danube River, and you got a bottle of champagne, the worst champagne I ever had in my life. It has to be called sparkling wine. It was not champagne. And you're on top of a boat partying, and it was great because the city, Budapest,
Hmm.
comes alive at night. It is so beautiful at night with all the lights on.
Yeah.
So you have to go explore Budapest during the night as well because it just looks so nice. But yeah, so I did like they have these really cool pubs called ruin pubs there, and so they're
Mm-hmm.
just kind of like they kind of look run down, but they're really cool.
Right.
Um, but and they're also known for their spas there. Their spas is what
Oh.
they're very well known for. The main one, the biggest one, is called like Széchenyi Spa. I know I'm butchering that name, but if you just Google like spa Budapest, it will come up. It's like it's
It'll
like
pop up.
SZ
Right.
Széchenyi or whatever. So I went there, and I actually went there twice. I went there
Mhm.
during the day, and I went there at night for their they call them a sparty, a spa
Spark.
party.
I've heard of that. Yep.
Now I will say, while it was a cool experience, I do think it's better to go during the day
Mm-hmm.
because A, it's way overpriced. You pay a lot
Mm-hmm.
to get into this party.
Mm-hmm.
B, the drinks are very expensive to
Mm-hmm.
go for it, much
Mm-hmm.
more expensive than like in the daytime. And so Secheni has like 18 different like rooms, like
Right.
different spa rooms with different like temperatured water and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Only one of them is open. The one outside, that's it. So you don't get to experience the
Ah,
whole thing. So that's
yeah.
why after going to it, I was like, well, I feel like I didn't get the whole experience for it. So I went back in
Right.
the
Right.
daytime. And
Right.
yeah, if you want to party, it's great. But I do feel like, at least put it this way, if you're going to go to the party, definitely go during the daytime as well, because
Mm-hmm.
you're not really getting the full experience out of this. Now,
Right.
Budapest is also where I have one of my travel stories that I tell all the time because people get a crack out of it. Like, on like dating profiles, it's like, what's your best travel story? This is what I have there.
Oh, we like travel stories, so we ready. Travel
Yeah.
story time.
Yeah. Okay. So one night when I was out with the hostel at a pub, I decided I really didn't want any more beer because the thing is, beer is like all what it's all about in Europe. Everyone drinks beer. Other than being a culture, just really cheap. Honestly, some places it's cheaper than water. And I love beer,
Wow.
but I was just kind of tired of it. And I was like, I don't want beer tonight. So I
Mhm.
decided I wanted one of my favorite drinks, which is a 7-7. Do you know what that is?
I don't. Let us know.
Yeah, so I don't think it's a super well common drink, but so a 7-7 is Seagram 7 whiskey with
Mm-hmm.
7 up, seven
Makes
and seven.
sense. Yep.
Now you can still have a 7-7 with like just whiskey and Sprite, but like
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to be that, but it's still a 7-7.
Right.
It also sounds cool to say,
Yeah.
I'd like a 7-7.
Yep. Yep.
So there's I like it. But so I went up to the bartender and I was like, "Hi, can I get a 7-7?" He looks at me like what is that? And he didn't speak great English. Because that's the other thing about Eastern Europe. Most of Europe people speak pretty good English, but
Okay.
Eastern Europe, a lot of people don't speak very good English.
Okay.
Or less, it's like a little bit more broken. But yeah,
Mhm.
definitely the further east you get, the less people speak English.
All right.
But so yeah, his English wasn't the best, and so I was like, yeah, it's a drink, it's a Seagram 7 whiskey and 7 up, 7-7. He's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, yeah, can I get one of those? And he's like, okay, yeah, sure. And then so he goes away, and I'm over here waiting for a bit. Like it's taking a really long time. And I see him making a bunch of drinks, and I'm like, what? He went over and made like someone else's drink. Um, and he had said that like the whiskey I mentioned, the Seagrams, they didn't have it. So he
Mm-hmm.
was like, pick a whiskey off of the board. Now the
Mm-hmm.
other thing about Budapest is they're not on the euro there.
Mm-hmm.
They have their own money. The kroner, I think is what it's called,
Okay.
Hungarian kroner.
Okay.
Um, and the conversion rate from the US is very confusing. When I was there, the conversion was like 274 kroner equals like $1. So like the
Wow.
conversion rate was, oh no, it wasn't the kroner, Hungarian forint.
Okay.
like Fornit. Yeah. Kroner was Danish. So she's getting all like the money confused in my head.
Right. Travelers. That's what it is.
Yeah, so the conversion rate's very confusing. And I do use an app. I highly recommend downloading that TripCoin.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way to keep track of how much you're spending on your travels, but it also has a currency converter that you don't need to have internet connection for. So I was
Oh.
constantly on there. But after a few, because I was there for a few days in Budapest, I could kind of do a little bit of mental math in my head, a little bit. But so, like the whiskey's up on the board, like say they're like $1,000.
Mm-hmm,
They're
mm-hmm.
not, but
Right.
so I just like pointed at one. I was like, how's that? And he's like, good. And I'm like, sure, fine. So yeah, he's taking a while making the drinks. And then a girl comes over and she hands me my receipt. She's like, oh, here you go. Here's your receipt. And I look at it and it says 17,000. And I'm like,
Oh. 17,000
um,
what?
like, okay, I know Hungarian money is a lot more than US, but I'm like looking at the board and I'm like, the board says 1,000. I'm like, that Sprite couldn't have cost that much. Cause she's like, this is just for the whiskey. And I'm like, excuse me, like, why does it say 17,000 on it? I ordered that whiskey. It's $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, and he's like loud, so I'm trying to like converse. And she brings me another receipt for like Sprite and it's like 70,000. And I'm like, I'm like, I don't understand. I'm like, why is this so expensive? It says 1,000 up there. And we're like kind of like going back and forth where I'm confused. She's trying to explain to me and I'm like, what? And then the guy finally comes over because I'd seen making this tray of drinks, right? He comes over and he's like, here you go, and hands me a tray of 7 whiskey and Sprites.
What?
And I was
like, oh, snaps. Oh, yeah. Oh.
like, what? He's like, here you go, your 7 whiskey and Sprites. I was like, no. I was like, I told you that was the name of the drink and I wanted one. I said, one.
Wow. See, language barriers, that happens. That
Yeah. And
happens.
so, so yeah, so that's why the receipts were so much,
Right.
17,000 for the whiskey and 17,000 for the Sprite. So that totaled to about $50. Like, okay, so for 7 drinks, $50 is not bad. At least in California, that's not bad. But I was
Right.
like, I'm not paying for this. Like, he messed up. Like, that's not my fault. Like,
Right.
and
Right.
and so the girl spoke better English than he did. She's like, I'm sorry, he's kind of newer. He just doesn't speak English. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not paying that. I don't have that much money on me. And
Right.
she's like, okay. She's like, well, can you at least like, because she's like, because the Sprite they used were like from the bottles. They weren't,
Mm-hmm.
like the little squirt thing. So she's like, we already like made the drinks and, can you at least pay like the cost, which was like half that. And I was like, oh, fine. So I paid like 17 like thousand for 7 drinks. So that came to I think like $25 or something.
Right.
And then I
Right.
try it, and it's not even a good 7 and 7. Like it tastes,
Mm.
because I don't like smoky whiskey, and it was smoky with, because when you do 7 and 7 correctly, you don't taste the whiskey in it.
Okay.
And so I tasted the whiskey and it didn't taste good. So I was giving away drinks to other people from my hostel. So I was the hit of the night because I was giving
You
away drinks. But
turn up. So yeah, so that lets you guys know out there, if there is a language barrier, you definitely want to make sure you are communicating effectively, or get somebody that's native that can speak English and the language there, so you can kind of get the right thing, so that doesn't happen
yeah,
to you. So with that being said, Jade, it looks like we traveled a lot in
yeah,
Eastern Europe, and now we are officially landed in Austria.
Austria. Yeah.
So welcome to all my people out there. We're off the plane. We're stretching our legs. We're ready to hit the ground moving. So what's the first thing we should do while in Austria?
So the first place I was in Austria is Vienna, which is the capital of Austria. Something I did not know in Austria is they all speak German there. I thought there was like an Austrian language. No, it's German. Also, Vienna that's not how you say it in there. It's because the V like letter doesn't exist. So it's um, it's spelled with a W there. It's like Wienna.
Well, how do you pronounce it?
I think it's like, I'm trying to remember. I think it's still kind of similar to like how you say Vienna, but you don't spell it with a V. It's spelled with a. It's like V, like Vienna, like Vienna or
Oh,
something like that. I'm
okay.
butchering it. It's been a while since I've been there, so I'm not saying it correctly. But yeah, so like when you try to geotag Vienna there, it's like you try to type with a V,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, where are you? So it's with the W there. So it's the capital. It's only about a 3-hour train ride from Budapest. So a lot of people hit up Budapest and Vienna. They do kind of have similar vibes to the city because they were all part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Mm-hmm.
So I was there for 3 days. I stayed at a hostel there, just like I stayed at hostels most places. And so let's see. The first place I went, I gotta grab some names real quick. Oh man, hang on. You can edit this out.
Yep. Do your thing. Do your thing.
Okay, let's see. Going back to my Instagram. Okay, was that the first thing I did? I thought it was Sorry.
No,
I was
you're good.
not prepared. I totally was like, oh crap, I should have names. Ooh, wow. I still have my notes. Like marked all the places that I want to go or that I went to, and the little check marks is like where I actually went, and I put prices down and stuff. So this is how I traveled. So myself traveling is that I didn't have plans. Like I wasn't like, this is where I'm going to be on this day. This is what I'm going to do on this day. I made a list of the cities I wanted to go to, about how long I thought I'd want to spend there, like, and then the places I wanted to go and like where I thought I might stay. And then I went by the seat of my pants so that I could decide I liked the city more, like in Budapest, and stay an extra day, or didn't like the city and move on. So I would book my hostel the day before I was leaving, or sometimes even the day of, and then head over. So nice. So one of the places I went to was Belvedere Palace. And so beautiful palace with beautiful gardens. The reason I went there is because they have the biggest collection of Gustav. Sorry, another name I need to look up. Wait, hang on a second. I think I have something from there that will be a good visual.
Yep, take your time.
I can find it real quick.
Yeah, take your time.
Nope, that's not it. Ah, perfect. This will be good. Okay. All right. So Belvedere Palace, they have the biggest collection of Gustav Klimt paintings. And so I never heard of Klimt until I watched this movie called The Woman in Gold. Right. Really interesting movie. Ryan Reynolds and Helen Mirren, I think, are in it. Really good movie. And so it's about a Klimt painting in the movie, and the painting was really beautiful. And so I was like, I'm going to go see this artist in person. Unfortunately, this is something I hated about museums in Europe, because it's not really the thing here, but most museums in Europe don't allow photos or videos, which is really lame. Yeah, especially because I was like travel vlogging.
Right. Messed that up.
But still wanted to go for the experience. And so they have a bunch of the Klimt paintings, and Klimt is a really unique artist because he like painted with a lot of like gold leaf and stuff in it. And so his most famous painting that a lot of people have seen, they might not know the name of the painting, but they've probably seen an image of it, is called The Kiss. And so I did get a little postcard from there. So that.
Oh, that is nice. Yeah.
And you can see like it has a little like fake gold stuff, but so kind of that's what it looks like in person, where it has like, it's like very shimmery. But so it's a very, very famous painting. And it's like, I'm not a huge art person, to be honest. But there is some artwork that I do really like, and that's like the ones that I think look very cool in person. And so Klimt's work, since he worked a lot with like gold leaf and stuff, is very, very cool. So that's one of the reasons why I went to Belvedere Palace. Oh, and here's a big tip for traveling Europe. So almost every single city, the first day I went there, I would start with a walking tour. Walking tours are the best way to get to know a city. And then the tour guide also can give you recommendations for like where to go from there, where to eat. It's a good way to get the history of like the city, like what it's all about, learn interesting tidbits, and then kind of be able to be like, okay, this is where I want to go from here. So I would almost always start my days with a walking tour, a free, they're called free walking tours, but they're not actually free, people. That what it means is you're just not paying a set rate for the tour. You tip your tour guide based on like how you think they did and like what you think they deserve.
Mm-hmm.
Usually the minimum you're wanting to tip is 10 euros per person. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's usually the minimum. If they didn't do great, you could obviously tip them less. And if they did,
Mm-hmm.
if you love them, tip them better. And some
Mm-hmm.
people, unfortunately, do go on free walking tours and take advantage and don't tip anything. But please don't be one of those people. Like
Right, right,
that's their job. That's how they make money. They make money big tips because it's
right,
free. You're not paying
right,
anything.
right, right.
um, so I did a walking tour there, just like I did in every other city. Learned a lot about the history. It's really interesting because of the whole Austro-Hungarian. It went back and forth
Mm-hmm.
over time, and
Mm-hmm.
then during World War II, it was taken over by Hitler and everything. And something interesting I found out was that the Austrian people welcomed Hitler. They were like, "Thank God, Hitler's like saving us! Like, yay,
Really?
Hitler!" Where most of the other countries in Europe, that were taken over by Hitler, were really fighting against it and hated it. Nope, Austria, Vienna were like, "Yay, yes!"
Wow.
So
Wow.
that was
What
something interesting. I found,
it is,
found
yeah.
out that Vienna very much welcomed Hitler, and we're happy to have Hitler.
Wow.
Because I think at that time it was Austria was kind of more taken was still in the Austro-Hungarian thing, but like I said, people speak German there, so it's more
Right.
of a German um, like leaning country. But so that was something interesting I found out on my tour. I did another museum there that's in like the center square. I can't remember
Mm-hmm.
the name of it, but there's a few museums there.
Mm-hmm.
Had some cool artwork in it. But if you're not a big artwork person,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say go to the Belvedere because it's a beautiful palace with like gardens, and then they have some cool artwork and some like cool palace looking rooms there to check out. Something that I'd wanted to do there, but I just wait, hang on, let me reset. I was like losing my train of thought. Oh wait, I have it written down. I have notes.
It
Jade,
works smarter, not harder, huh?
refer to your notes. Do. Okay. Oh, so something that was on my list is the Spanish riding school. So like that's where they like teach um these very like important people how to ride these beautiful horses, and they do like a little show. So like the regular shows are really, really expensive, but you can just go and like watch them train for I think it was like $15. So this is a big thing on people's list, like to go when they go to Vienna, is to go to the Spanish riding school. If you're gonna go in the day, honestly, it's a waste of money. I was getting really bored. So for $15, I was kind of like, so I'd say skip it unless you're
Right.
gonna go to the nighttime show. Let's see, where else did I go? Schönbrunn Palace.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two palaces in Austria, in Vienna. So Belvedere is the one that's in the main city,
Mm-hmm.
and that was kind of like their winter palace. And Schönbrunn is outside of the city. I mean, now it's still in Vienna, but it's like on the outskirts.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't part of the city back then. And so because the royalty, they hated to be in the city during the summer because it would stink from people throwing out their chamber pots, and it was really
Right.
hot and sweaty and
Right.
smelly. So they
Ooh.
wanted to get away, so they'd go to their country palace, which is Schönbrunn. And Schönbrunn is so much bigger than Belvedere. It has
Mm-hmm.
humongous gardens, beautiful place to walk around. Bring your walking shoes if you're going there, because you're going to
Comfortable.
be doing
Yeah.
a lot of walking.
Yeah.
So they have where you can tour the palace.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful place. I recommending the audio guide, just helps give you some information. They do kind of like rush you along a bit, a bit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, another place you can't take photos or videos on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but cool place to like kind of check out. If you like checking out like palaces and grand castles, like you've always kind of dreamed of being a princess or something. Like
Mm-hmm.
I did as a kid. Going into palaces was really cool. But the
Right.
gardens, honestly, is where I think it's at. Like they have a few mazes on their properties, like browse to go through like the little mazes. Um, Lots of big fountains and everything. It's very grand, very beautiful place.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely go to Schönbrunn Palace. If you have to choose between Schönbrunn or Belvedere, go to Schönbrunn Palace.
So, question: do we need visas to go to Austria?
You do not need a visa to go to any of the countries in the something else I gotta Google real quick. What is it called? Okay, Schengen zone. SCHENGEN. Shenzhen zone. So if you're an American, this includes a lot of the countries in Europe. You can go for 90 days without a visa. You can stay for 90 days throughout this whole, it includes most of the countries in Europe. So nope, you don't need a visa. You don't need a visa to go. Now, I think things might be changing. So, of course, like look into restrictions. So you're not just showing up and being like, I saw on that podcast, I don't need a visa. This is 3 years ago. So things might have changed with the EU, with the whole like EU and Brexit and all that. I'm pretty sure that's still the case though. But yeah, so nope. As long as you're going to be in that zone for less than 90 days, you don't need a visa. And what a lot of people do, because they go backpacking for like 6 months is Europe.
Right.
You leave the Shenzhen zone for, I can't remember how long you have to be out of it for, a few days, a week or something, and you go back in and your 90 days resets.
Yeah, they see little tricks of the trade right there.
Yeah.
Now, what was the far as Austria, what was like the weather like? What do you recommend the best time of the year to go? If what do you recommend?
Yeah, so I was there in the spring. I was there in May, and I thought that was a great time of year to go because it wasn't too hot, but it also wasn't cold. Like I was wearing, dresses and skirts and stuff. So it was nice warm weather, but it wasn't very cold there. Yeah, so spring is the best time to go, I think, weather-wise. Also, springtime is known as shoulder season in Europe. So there's 3 different seasons. There's high season, there's shoulder season, and there's low season. So high season is going to be the busiest time of years. That's summer. That's like Christmas and New Year's vacation. That's spring break. Low season is like in the fall. So from like late September to like right before Christmas. And then from like January to about March. And then shoulder season is from like March to about beginning of June, middle of June, before like all the summer break people start coming. So that's definitely something you want to think about when you're going to be traveling, especially if you're going to be backpacking, is what time of year you're going. Because also here's the other big thing is what time of year you're going determines how much pre-planning you have to do on your trip. Because if you go in high season, which unfortunately a lot of people can only go during high season because that's when they're off from school and everything, things book up. Hostels book up, museums book up, trains book up. So you have to pre-plan a lot. And since I didn't want to be pre-planning, I went in shoulder season. It's also cheaper. If you don't go in high season, it's also accommodations are cheaper. Trains are usually cheaper. So picking what time of year you want to go is really important. So I would very much recommend, if you do not have to go in the summer, don't go in the summer. You'll just be running into so many people. It's going to be so crowded. It's going to be hot. Everything's going to be more expensive, and you're going to have a harder time finding accommodation and being able to get into the places you want to go to, or waiting really, really long lines and everything.
So what about far as, is there anything about Austria that you did not particularly care for or dislike in general or specific?
I didn't like. Austria was a country that was a little more expensive than like Eastern Europe. I'd say it was about standard for Western Europe. So that was something I didn't like as much after being in Eastern Europe, was that it's a little more pricey. The food, I did have some really good food while I was there, but I would say the Austrian cuisine is not like amazing. It's not like Italy or France. They don't have amazing food, but I did have some really good food there. When I was in Vienna, the tour guide told me about this 2 places to go to. One for apple strudel. So I had apple strudel there. Apple strudel is a very German Austrian thing, and then blanking on the word. Wiener Schnitzel. Wiener Schnitzel. Now, you pronounce it here. That's what it is. Now I made a connection. So Vienna is pronounced yeah, Vienna is pronounced like that, like instead of Wiener. So that's why it's spelled with a W, but it's pronounced Vienna.
Uh,
So Wiener
uh,
Schnitzel, you're thinking of the hot dog place, that you can go to. So Wiener Schnitzel is not hot dogs. Do not know why they called it that place. Yeah, I found this out and I was fascinated.
uh-huh.
Wiener Schnitzel is veal, which is baby cow. That's
Oh.
deep fried and breaded. That is what Wiener
Oh.
Schnitzel is.
See, you learn something new every day.
Yeah,
Of course, us Americans think you talk about a hot dog, some chili on it, maybe some
yeah. It's
pastrami.
Wiener Schnitzel, but it's actually
Well,
pronounced Wiener Schnitzel. So
that-
I had to have some Wiener Schnitzel while I was there. So the
mhm.
traditional Wiener Schnitzel is veal, but the more common Wiener Schnitzel now, I actually think it's called something slightly. It's still called Schnitzel, but I forget what like the first part is
Mhm.
made with pork. Like I said, Europe loves pork. Like I
Right.
was shocked because pork is not a huge thing here in America. They're like bacon. That's about it.
Right. Bacon.
But pork is like the main meat over in
Mhm.
Europe. So pork is
Okay.
like the schnitzel that most people get. But again, since I don't eat pork and I want to try the original Wiener Schnitzel,
Right.
um, I had the Wiener Schnitzel and it was amazing. There's this, if you Google like Wiener Schnitzel in Vienna, there's the restaurant that's been there for like 100 years. That's like the best place to get Wiener Schnitzel. That's where I went.
Mhm.
Amazing meal. Was
Mhm.
a pricier meal, especially compared to like my other meals I was having, but that's definitely a meal that you can like do a little splurge on. I mean, when I say splurge, for me that was like $35. But when
Yep.
you're on
Yep.
a tight budget, when my
Yep.
budget's like $100 a day,
Yep. Yep. You gotta
that's a
calculate.
that's a good chunk. Yeah, but other than Vienna, I also went to Salt. Sorry, I know I'm like you can cut around this because like I said, I ramble a lot and I talk a lot. I just wanted to touch it. Yeah,
Go ahead.
sorry,
Go,
you
go
go.
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, so other than Vienna, I went to Salzburg as well,
Yeah.
in Austria. So while I really liked Vienna, I
Uh-huh.
love Salzburg.
Okay.
Salzburg was one of my top places I went to. So Salzburg and Vienna are very, very different vibes. Same
Oh.
country,
Uh-huh.
very different vibes. One is very city,
Right.
lots of museums and everything to go to. And Salzburg is right on the German border, basically, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like up in the mountains, like not like
Mm-hmm.
super high up in the mountains, but it's like in the
Right.
mountains, and
Right.
it's beautiful. It's not
Yeah.
really like city. It's very small, but it is gorgeous. Like just beautiful green hills and just alpine lakes. It is gorgeous. And other than it being really beautiful, this is going to sound so cheesy, but one of the reasons I wanted to go to Salzburg was one of my favorite movies as a kid was The Sound of Music, right?
Oh,
So
gotcha.
you've seen
Gotcha.
The Sound of Music, right?
I've heard of it. I did not see it, but I have heard of it. I have. I know what you're
You've
talking
never
about.
oh, you have
I,
to watch The Sound of Music. But you know the classic where she's like spinning around on the hill. You've seen
Mhm.
that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what Salzburg looks like. It's gorgeous. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful. But so you've heard of The Sound of Music. It's a very famous movie, which
Mm-hmm.
I did not know is actually based on real people. Like
Mm-hmm.
this actually, there was this family. The Von Trapps is a real family of
Mm-hmm.
singing children. Um, so, obviously some of it was a little bit, they dramatized it and fictionalized it a bit, but
Right.
Sound of Music is it's a pretty accurate movie to the Von Trapps. But
Mm-hmm.
so, I like going to Salzburg. I was like, oh, I'm so excited to see like the film because they also filmed it all in Salzburg. Like that's where it takes
Right.
place, and they filmed it all there. And they have a
Right.
Sound of Music tour there, and I was like, oh, I have to do it. And it was honestly one of the most fun. It was like one of my favorite days out of my whole 7-week trip. It was so much fun. If you're a Sound of Music fan, you have to go to Salzburg. You have to do the Sound of Music tour. So you're on a tour bus and it's like a 3-hour tour and they take you to a bunch of different filming locations in Salzburg. And it's also nice because you get to see a lot of Salzburg, a lot of different
Mm-hmm.
areas.
Mm-hmm.
They take you out like half an hour outside the city too, which I probably wouldn't have gone
Mm-hmm.
to see like the church where she was married in, and this like really beautiful lake area. And on the bus, they play all the songs and everyone does a sing along of it. So it was a lot of fun.
uh,
But the thing that like shocked me, I found this out like a few days before I was in Salzburg when I was talking to someone who lived in Austria, blew my mind was that most Austrians have never heard of the Sound of Music. They do not know what it is. Like, because for me, when I think of Austria, my whole life, Sound of Music is the first thing that comes to my mind. Like, so many Americans associate Austria with the Sound of Music because of that movie, and they don't
Right.
know what it is. I'm like, I was expecting like people in Austria to be like, this is our national treasure. We love the Sound of Music, And she's like, no. She's like, most people don't know what it is. They think it's like some American thing because they see the tour buses, and so they don't like.
Right.
She's like, some people have heard of the real family, the Von Trapps, but like most people have never seen the movie, never heard of it. And I'm thinking like they think it's like a national gem to them, this movie. And no, they don't know what it is. They don't care. They're like some American tourist thing.
That's good. That's funny that you mentioned
I
that.
mean,
So
it
it
is.
sound it sound like Austria is a place to go if you are into that type of history and culture. Eat you some veal, or some Wiener schnitzels, which is breaded
Some Wiener
calf. Yeah,
Schnitzel.
that sounds
Yeah.
interesting.
It's
Definitely
really
sounds
good. I promise. I promise
yeah.
it's really good.
So try it out. Definitely try it out. And then we do have to wrap things up. We're
Yeah.
going to go ahead and hit the gift shop real quick before we hit this flight back. But any last things that you want to talk about Austria before we head back home, Jay?
Um, Ooh, God, there's like so much. Just I think it's a place that's not on like a ton of people's list, but I do think it is a really great country. And like I said, you can go from being in Vienna, which kind of has more of the Hungarian vibe to it, and then going to Salzburg, which is much more German because it's kind of like by the Alps. So it's a very like diverse country in terms of like different places you can go to, and then also get off the beaten path. I went to a few little small towns, and going to places that every tourist isn't at is somewhere cool to go to. So do your research, and take trains. That's my other big tip for going to Europe. Take trains. A lot of people take like really cheap flights like Ryanair because it's really cheap to fly around.
Mm-hmm.
um, or they take buses because it's even cheaper than trains, but buses take a lot longer.
Yeah.
um, get a Euro pass.
Okay. Yeah,
So
that's a good one.
Euro pass, I paid about, this was 3 years ago, but I paid like $550
Mm-hmm.
for 14 days of travel
Mm-hmm.
over a 2-month period. So I could ride on trains for 14 days.
Mm-hmm.
So taking trains is the way to go in Europe because you don't have to worry about airport security, getting on an airplane, checking your bag. Oh, is your bag going to be overweight? You pay an extra fee. Nope. You just hop on a train. You can stretch. And trains take you through the most beautiful areas of Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So just staring out the windows of trains in Europe and watching the countryside go by
Mm-hmm.
was one of my favorite parts of traveling, was being on the trains and watching the countries go by. So travel by train if you can.
That is a great travel tip. A lot of times we want to hurry up, especially Americans want to hurry up and
Yeah.
get to our next destination. Sometimes we just have to slow it down. Sometimes, we take the scenic route.
Yeah.
I think that's
But it's in the
important.
middle.
Really,
It's
yeah,
not as
yeah.
slow as buses. It's not quite as fast as planes usually, unless you're only like a 2-hour train ride away. But yeah, take trains.
Yeah, definitely take trains. It sounds like Eastern Europe is a place to travel, do some backpacking, hit different places. You can hit a lot of different countries. So because it's so easy to travel within Europe. So
Yeah.
that is definitely a place to go. So ladies and gentlemen, we do have to catch a flight back home. We have a gotta get home. So on the way back, we do have one last segment, Jade. So I'm gonna ask you
Okay.
a list of questions
All
and
right.
you have to answer them as fast as possible. So quick, 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 quick,
Okay.
quick.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and then also you can only answer in one word answers. Okay. So no sentences, no long
Okay.
drawn
That's
out
gonna be hard
stories.
for
Anything.
me. I talk a
It's
lot.
okay. It's so I'm a talker too. That's why you think I got a podcast. So I'm a talker. So let's go ahead. Let me get see if I'm ready. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Vamonos. So
Okay.
question number one: what is your favorite airline?
Southwest.
What is your favorite hotel or hostel booking? Excuse me. Let me do that again. What is your favorite hotel or hostel?
Uh, Disney hotels.
What is your favorite cruise line?
Norwegian.
What is your favorite state?
California.
What is your favorite country?
Italy.
What is your favorite hotel or hostel booking site?
Oh, Hostel World,
What is your favorite flight booking site?
Skyscanner, or Hopper.
Good ones.
Shoot.
Um, what is one thing that Jade Field must bring on all of her trips?
Camera,
Where do you want to go next?
Thailand,
What other state would you live in?
Colorado,
What other country would you live in?
Croatia.
Last question. What is your favorite travel podcast?
The Global Travel Podcast.
Hey, good answer, good answer, good answer. Perfect. Thank you so much, Jade. Much appreciated, much appreciated. Also, I will whatever social media you got or YouTube channels or whatever thing, I'm gonna put everything in the video and so folks can come ask you questions and follow
Yeah.
you or whatever the case may be. And then to all my travelers out there who are listening, it's time to start landing, get prepared to get home. So I need you guys back into your seats. I need you to buckle up, trays up, seats in an upright position. So before we land, Jade, if you can give our travelers, our listeners, one last piece of travel advice, what would that be?
Let's see. One piece of travel advice. Don't rush. A lot of people, when they travel, they want to hit as many places as possible. I'm guilty of this as well. You don't need to spend a month in a place, but spend enough time that you can at least say, oh, I felt like I got a good feel for the city. Don't just go somewhere to like mark it off your list. Like, oh, I've been to 30 places. Like, when you say, oh, I've been to Austria, make sure that like you can actually say, I've been to Austria. I didn't just stop there for a day and barely looked around. So yeah, a lot of travelers just really rush. So take your time, spend a little bit more time in places than you think.
Well said. I agree 100%. Just slow down, take your time, be in the moment. There's no rush. So you don't want to, just enjoy it. Enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for flying here with us at the Global Travel Podcast. We are now safely landed. You can unbuckle your seatbelts, grab your belongings, and exit the cabin. With that being said, we are all set and ready to go and see you guys on our next trip. If you would like to be a guest on our show and tell us about your travel experiences, then leave us a comment in the comment section below so we can reach out to you. Also, if you have any countries, states, or cities that you'd like us to review, please let us know so we can plan a trip there. Lastly, if you got some good value today and liked our podcast, please hit the like button and click subscribe so you can travel with us again next time. So subscribe right now because you don't want to miss the next trip. With that being said, over and out.